Hi guys, today we are going to be reviewing the worst Christmas movie on planet Earth, and if there is a worse one than this one, I've never seen it, and it would have to be pretty bad to compete. It is Kirk Cameron's Saving Christmas from 2014. The reason I picked this one for my Christmas movie over others is because multiple of you said you wanted me to do a review on this movie, so this is your fault. As you can see, I am wearing some Christmas attire to really set the tone for this movie. I went to this movie completely blind. I don't even really know who Kirk Cameron is. I recognized him, but I honestly don't know much about him. But I do want to say when I first Googled this movie, I knew I was in for a treat. I saw hilarious reviews, one of them saying the first thing that popped up for this movie was an overview saying it was the worst movie of all time. So I knew I was in for a treat. And it was the hardest thing on planet Earth for some reason to find this movie. It's not anywhere, at least I couldn't find it anywhere. So eventually I found it on YouTube and it just had Spanish subtitles over it. And that's all I could find. Maybe I'm just not good at finding this movie. I don't know. So let's just get into it. First off, it starts off hella weird with Kirk Cameron sitting in front of the fireplace and basically saying how much he loves Christmas and hot chocolate. And it's very much a Christmas setting, and he talks about how Christmas makes people more compassionate and kind, and he says that Christmas gives everyone this sense deep inside that something big happened, and because of that big thing, people know everything is going to be okay. I've never once thought that about Christmas, but oh well. Then we start to get into it.
3 words. War on Christmas.
The war on Christmas. You already know that's going to be the topic. The war on Christmas. That doesn't exist. So he starts off by saying some people just want to throw a wet blanket on it. So what does he mean by this? He claims that there are groups of people who tell people to keep Christmas private and keep it to themselves. Christmas? In the United States, people are telling you to keep Christmas private. I have a really hard time believing that is true. I've never seen a thing like that a day in my life, especially in the United States, but okay. Then he said there are a group of people who say everything about Christmas is bad. So he's just talking about Scrooge. Okay. So he is offended if somebody doesn't like Christmas, which is weird. But okay. Okay, so now the actual story starts. There's a big Christmas party. And he's kind of narrating the whole thing. During him narrating this thing, he says, in our own stories, we can choose to be the hero or the villain, the wise man or the fool. Gee, I wonder which one he thinks is the hero and which one he thinks is the villain, and who is the wise man and who is the fool. Somehow I think that he probably believes he's the hero and the wise man, and people who don't agree with him are the villain and the fool. They are showing a guy who is sitting in the living room. He's just kind of minding his own business, and Kirk says he doesn't like Christmas, and this guy happens to be his brother-in-law. His name is Christian. Interesting choice of name. But okay. And Kirk is essentially just narrating, saying that some people look at Christmas and see joy. Others see the bad in it. He literally says that where some see festive decorations, some see perverted symbols with hidden meanings.
Some see festive decorations, others see perverted symbols with hidden meanings.
Why doesn't he elaborate on that? I wish so badly he would elaborate on that, but for some reason I think he probably can't. What are you talking about? And then he says that his brother-in-law sees overspending, greed, paganism, and something he calls elf worship.
Commercialism, greed, holiday junk, materialism, paganism, elf worship.
Elf worship. I'm not joking. What is elf worship? I don't know.
All hail.
Elf.
What's going on here?
All hail. Elf.
Seize him, slaves! All hail.
Elf. I've never heard of elf worship before in my life. He says some people are just determined to see the worst. And it's, to him, for some reason, nobody can have any valid reason for not liking Christmas or not being that into it. I can think about 100 reasons you could not be into it. the holidays is actually a really hard time for people, for a lot of people, for a lot of reasons. So I feel like he's coming from a place of ignorance, but let's move on. Now we see his brother-in-law, Christian. He goes to sit in his car to get away from the party. And Kirk goes apparently to give him an intervention. I'm not sure why somebody needs an intervention just for taking a break from the party, but here we go. Kirk asks what's wrong, and Christian talks about this kid he saw at the store who was crying and acting spoiled. And he talks about how he just sees a bunch of stuff and chaos and corporate greed. And he says, how many kids could we have fed? How many wells could we have dug? And in my opinion, like, yes, he has a valid point. And this is coming from somebody who celebrates Christmas and gets gifts for people. Actually, I've been making a lot of gifts this year, but that doesn't matter. This is coming from somebody who celebrates Christmas and partakes in the capitalist part of it. But yeah, he has a point, like overconsumption and stuff like that. And there are things that could go to instead. So it's a valid point, in my opinion. And he's just kind of talking about how he kind of thinks the whole thing is unethical, which I understand, but it's bringing him down. It's making him feel kind of depressed and not in the Christmas spirit. Christian goes on to say that this cannot be what God wants. I mean, I feel like that's fair enough, considering if you're looking at it from the perspective of this is solely about Jesus's birth, then you wouldn't partake in all the other stuff because the other stuff is secular and capitalist. So I do understand what he's saying. And then Kirk says, actually, you're wrong. You got it all wrong. He says, you drank the Kool-Aid, you took the bait, hook, line, and sinker. Why? Because he sees issues within capitalism? All right. Kirk says this is actually all about Jesus. All of it. All of it. And Christian is spoiling it for everyone, and he is listening to the wrong people. First of all, I don't understand how he is spoiling it for everybody, because he was just in the house at the Christmas party. He was just chilling. Like, he wasn't complaining. He wasn't ruining it for anybody. He was just like talking to people and chilling there. And then when he did feel overwhelmed, he went and sat in the car to, not spoil it for everybody else. So what are you talking about? And on the second part of it, he's saying you're listening to the wrong people. It seems to me from what he described, he formed these opinions on his own from what he's witnessing around him. So I'm not sure what he's talking about with that either. And then Christian says, how does any of this honor God? And Kirk starts to ramble about the nativity scene and why that scene is so important. It is so strange. So basically Christian is asking him to address this stuff. And how does a lot of this stuff, especially like the greed and the overconsumption, the capitalism, how is that what Jesus wants? How is that for the glory of God, essentially? And Kirk just goes on this tangent about how important Jesus being born is and why nativity scenes are important. He completely ignores everything that Christian said, like every single part of it. He ignored all of it and just goes into this detailed account of Jesus's birth and how important the nativity scene is, which it's like, why you did not address anything he said. That's weird. And then after he says all of this, Christian goes, I never saw it that way, huh? What? He ignored everything you said, talked about the birth of Jesus, and then wrapped it up with, that's the reason for the season. Meanwhile, he was talking about anything but that. He was talking about everything but that. So I don't know why he did that. And then they show some dudes now they're showing some dudes in the Christmas party inside talking about there's a war on Christmas. The one guy says, and they're like saying this in secret. They're literally holding up their mugs and talking behind their mugs because they're afraid to say it out loud for some reason. And the one guy says, they're taking away our freedom of speech. I'm not allowed to say Merry Christmas anymore. So, side note, I worked as a barista for years. I cannot tell you how many people came up to me and they're like, it's a shame that you can't say Merry Christmas. That's the first time I'm hearing about this. My boss didn't tell me that. My company didn't tell me that. You're the first one telling me this. You can always tell who's watching too much Fox News because they would always say that stuff to me and I was never told that. Like, at any job. And then right after I had that thought, because I paused it and was writing this down, he says, I saw it on Fox News, so you know it's true. There are parts of this movie that really confused me because it seemed like that was a joke, because he was also talking about conspiracy theories after that. But also they are the type of people that would watch Fox News, like Kirk Cameron would. So I don't, it's really confusing because it's supposed to be a comedy, but it's hard to tell what parts are satire or not. I don't know. I struggle with that. Now we're back at the car with Kirk and Christian is basically saying that the Christmas tree idea is pagan, and Kirk starts kind of like drilling him with questions about it, like details. And because Christian doesn't know the details of what he's talking about, Kirk is like, well, I'm going to tell him what's up. And he says that Christmas trees are actually in the Bible because God made trees and decorated them with fruit, talking about the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Then he says, when God wanted to make his house beautiful, he brought trees inside. What is he talking about? I'm sorry, where in the Bible does it say God brought trees inside of the house and decorated them? I couldn't find any Bible verse for this. I'm guessing that he didn't have a verse for this because it's not there. And this entire time, Christian is asking for Bible verses, and this entire time, I don't think he gives a single Bible verse. He just says stuff and he's like, source? I made it up. Source? Trust me, bro. So that's how this goes. And then he said that God created the winter solstice, so they own that as well. Right. So then he says the most bizarre thing I've ever heard come from Christianity, and that is truly impressive to me. Actually, it's impressive. He says, Adam, in the story of Genesis, stole the fruit and ate it. And when you steal something, you have to put it back. But the fruit was already in Adam's stomach, so he couldn't. Therefore, Adam would have to put himself on the tree. And then he says, now think about that. What did Jesus do? He put himself on the tree. He did what Adam couldn't do. What are we talking about? Genuinely, what the hell are you talking about? This man is doing the most insane mental gymnastics I've ever seen. I've never heard this. Like, if you guys have heard this from someone, please comment down below and tell me. That is like the biggest reach I've ever heard. But anyways, he says, so is this part. He says, so when you walk into a Christmas tree lot, you are walking into a place with a ton of crosses that are not being used because Jesus paid the price.
Huh?
So now all of lumber turns into theology. Now all trees are theology, I guess. Guys, any wooden thing could be turned into a cross, but because Jesus died for us, it isn't. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Also, there are plenty of other torture devices that can be used and have been used to kill people. So he's kind of like, wow, we're so lucky that we just get these trees instead of crosses, and now we don't have to be tortured by this device. Number one, there's other torture devices that people have been killed by and do every day. And then on top of that, there are people who have also been crucified in the same way Jesus has and died after Jesus died.
My bad.
So I genuinely have no idea what he's talking about. And then Christian says, that's pretty cool. One man's insane interpretation of all of this is another man's treasure, I guess. Now Christian brings up Santa and about how Santa overshadows Jesus, and how Santa and Satan had the same letters in their name, and something they had in common, they both tried to get rid of God. Because remember when Santa tried to get rid of God? This is when I become disappointed in Christian. I'm like, damn, we lost another one to Satanic Panic. They also keep trying to be funny in this movie, and it is so incredibly painful. And that's not me being dramatic. So yay, we're on the topic of Santa now. And Kirk brings up is talking about Saint Nicholas and how he was a devout Christian and how he became famous for giving to the poor and children. So to my understanding, that's true. He was known for his charity, especially helping the less fortunate. He talks about how St. Nicholas was a real man who fought real enemies because he fought against heresy, which is funny to me because I think St. Nicholas would definitely call modern day evangelicalism, like Kirk Cameron believes, heretical. I think he would call Kirk Cameron a heretic for sure. So I wonder if Kirk sees himself as the enemy. Probably not, because there doesn't seem to be a lot of self-awareness going on here. In this story, he also had St. Nicholas as a warrior, like a warrior type, and I think this was kind of supposed to be humorous, but also he tries to describe him like this is kind of like how he really was, like a real man. I don't know. It's weird. He's a real man who beats the shit out of people. He's a real man who beats the shit out of people he claims are heretics. It's genuinely the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. He makes him out to be this badass dude that beats the guy with a stick. It literally looks like he's killing the guy.
Of course, not everyone at the council was happy with his less than jolly actions.
Again, I wonder if Kirk Cameron would be okay with getting his shit rocked by Santa for being a heretic. My guess is probably not. He says St. Nicholas wasn't afraid to be politically incorrect. Oh, what? St. Nicholas was a real man and wasn't afraid to be politically incorrect. I'm sure that's an accurate depiction of the historical St. Nicholas. All throughout this thing, he's essentially labeling a lot of legend as fact, even though the legends even the legends themselves, he is putting a huge dramatic spin on. Like I said, some for humor, and some it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell what is humor and what's not. But I think it's supposed to be funny. But he's also he's actually thinking this is kind of who this guy is. And on top of that, he is making St. Nicholas aligned with his worldview, of course, by talking about he's such a tough guy and he's a real man for not being politically correct. This very much gives the idea that real men are essentially assholes because they don't have to be politically correct. And it's kind of like a justification, like God doesn't want me to be politically correct, therefore I can be an asshole and I can be justified for it. In most cases I've found, especially in the past 5 to 6 years, people use this as justification to be a jerk. I see this so often. And then they're like, well, I'm just telling the truth is hard, or I'm just not politically correct. And it's like, no, you're actually just being an asshole though. I see it used for this all the time, and I think people just want excuses to act like this. And we see this in modern evangelicalism, especially in the in our government, in the White House right now. And that's why a vile human being can be our president and evangelicals still support him. They, like Trump calling a woman a pig, calling Tim Walz the R word, constantly belittling other people, especially he does it a ton to women. That's okay, because that's just him not being politically correct, which God doesn't want us to be. It's not that he's an asshole or anything. He's just, bullying and belittling people because he's politically incorrect, right? That's what a real man does. A real man is an asshole and he bullies people. It's a way to excuse disgusting behavior that I keep seeing over and over again. Christian is so impressed by this, and he says, Santa is the man. Because beating up someone who doesn't agree with your theology is so admirable. Literally, how did we get to ripped, real man beats the shit out of you, Santa Claus? Like, how did we get here? And I don't know what I expected from this movie, but it certainly wasn't this. I just did not expect Santa to be turned into this man, this like fan fiction of Santa Claus. This movie is a fever dream. It really is the most insane narrative I've ever heard, and that is truly hard to achieve with me personally. Again, I know some of it is supposed to be humor, but it's still so insane. So now Christian is like, OMG, I was so wrong. Time to go back in and celebrate Christmas. And for some reason, he runs and slides into the house on his stomach. I don't know. Then Kirk is narrating and he's like, now that you know who Santa is, wouldn't you want to take a picture with him? Yes, now that I know Santa is violent, I want to go sit in his lap. Said nobody ever. Kids should feel safe with him because he'll beat you up if he thinks you're a heretic. Now Kirk is proud to say that Christian's eyes are finally open, guys. They're finally open and he sees the truth of Christmas. And he says, Christian finally realizes that Jesus killed death. He killed death, but people die every day and every single one of us dies. Right. I do have one compliment though, when it comes to Kirk Cameron. I have always said that fundamentalist religion hinders your imagination, but that obviously isn't the case for Kirk Cameron. His imagination goes crazy, and I commend him for that. Anyways, the end is just this dance number for some reason, and it lasts forever.
Christ the Lord, the newborn King, echoing their joyous strain. Don't
Like a long time. Kirk also says, don't listen to the people who complain about materialism or greed or whatever over consumption, because it's actually what God wants. God loves capitalism. Weird, I also don't remember that verse in the Bible, and I feel like he also cannot provide it to me. And that's it. That's the movie. The movie is a 40-minute conversation in the car, and then a dance party inside. And the conversation inside the car is the most insane shit I've ever heard in my entire life. I mean this when I say this. I would love to have a conversation with this man. Kirk Cameron, if you ever see this, can we link up and talk about this? Because I'm genuinely so amazed by it. I truly am amazed by this movie. I also want to talk to him because I want to know which parts are supposed to be funny and which parts he's dead ass about. It's hard to tell. It really is. Anyways, let me know what you guys think about this movie. I'm going to try and post clips of this movie in here. I definitely am, but if there's Spanish subtitles, it's because that's the only video I could find. But yeah, let me know what you think. Also, just like tell me about what you guys are doing for the holidays, for Christmas or whatever else you're celebrating. I have been making a lot of gifts and I have been doing it nonstop. And it's been super fun, but also super stressful. So I've been having a good time and I'm actually looking forward to Christmas this year. Because I don't know, I've created my own traditions. There were many years where I actually didn't like Christmas. It was actually really dreadful for me because of a lot of things that happened in my life. Something Kirk Cameron finds to be unbelievable that people actually go through. But now I've created my own traditions and I can appreciate it for what it is. The secular parts anyway. And there are a lot of people around me that are celebrating it for religious reasons, and that's okay if that's what they want to do. That doesn't bother me either. But yeah, tell me what you guys are up to, and I hope everybody has a good holiday. And if it's stressful for you, I hope you get through it. If it's a sad time for you, I'm sorry. I'm thinking about you. I always think about people who have a hard time during holidays. I hope you get through it. Take care of yourselves. Do good things for yourselves that get you through these times. Think about yourself. Take care of yourself. I know it's easy to ignore that during this time, but don't. Trust me, do not. Yeah. So that's it. All right, guys. Have a good one. Also, little side note, I wanted to show off my tree topper. I made it last year and I'm still very proud of it. Speaking of new traditions, come new projects, craft projects for me. Recommend making your own tree topper, 10 out of 10. Biblically accurate Furby. And I kind of have this dream that one day this will obviously be the tree topper like it normally is, and then every single ornament will be a Furby and I will just have a Furby tree. So maybe one day that dream will come true. I feel like Kirk Cameron would also say that that honors God, because capitalism.